I'm Stan Lee. I've been writing stories for the young generation for the past 30 years, and in the course of that time, well, I would imagine I receive about 200 to 300 fan letters every day, probably as much as the Beatles. I spend most of my time reading the mail and quite a lot of time answering it. During this time, I think I've learned a lot about what young people think. More importantly, I think I've learned a lot about what young people are. Today, we've come to a time in history when there definitely is a generation gap. It seems to us that perhaps anything that can be done to bridge this gap, anything that can be done to help present the point of view of these young people without being patronizing, without hostility, with respect, with attention, would be a very beneficial thing. We think that a voice is needed. Oh, sure, they talk a lot, and they yell a lot, and they demand a lot, but so often nobody really listens to them. We're going to try to present a voice that somebody will listen to. The voice is needed. We hope it will be ours.
Is that correct?
Right. That was our first book in the so-called Marvel age of comics, which revolutionized all of literature, as we all know.
How did you come up with this idea?
Well, actually, it wasn't even an original idea. The fellow who was then the publisher said to me, I was the editor at the time and the head writer. That doesn't mean I wrote heads. I was the chief writer.
Okay.
And he said to me, you know, Stan, I found out that DC Comics has a book called the Justice League, and it's selling pretty well. And maybe we ought to do a book with a lot of superheroes. So I figured, okay. So right away it started out as a copy, but I said, I'm not going to copy the Justice League. I never can remember it was the Justice League or the Justice Society. It was one of those. So I figured, okay, if we have to do a team, that's fine, but we're going to do it differently than anybody else does it. So instead of a lot of good guys who always won at the end, and they were brilliant and they were superior to the villains and they never did anything wrong, we came up with the Fantastic Four, who inevitably did something wrong, and they weren't really that much better than the bad guys. And I would like to think that the stories were unexpected and you never knew what was going to happen next. And that started all of this magnificence.
Is this your formula?
This is a historic little
What do you want?
event. Oh, right in front of here.
Okay.
Are you okay?
like being photo. He always looks better than me. No.
The digital camera?
Yeah. You got a couple?
You'll be in trouble.
You got a couple of those?
I'm gonna get one more.
One more?
One more?
Okay, yeah.
Got it?
Yeah, and then...
All right,
that,
Smile.
okay.
Oh, I remember that Hollywood photo cover.
You remember that?
Did you ever see that one?
No.
The whole
book was dedicated to
The whole book was so cool.
Yeah.
You have some upstairs, I think. Don't
Stan, I got
Yeah.
Daredevil's #1s,
You're
15,
kidding.
Hulk
Really?
#1s.
And you go through here to get in.
What are you going to do now with this?
Kidnap you.
Now, this is our digital animation studio.
This part?
Yeah, and this is Stan's vault. We do live webcasts from Stan's vault.
Would you believe this used to be a bank? And when we took it over, they couldn't move the vault.
Oh, I will. I will.
So they had to leave it here.
They did.
Yeah.
The only guy who has his own bank vault. Look at that.
But Michael's the one that needs it.
A number of people have been worried about my left hand, and I really appreciate their concern because they noticed that I wasn't using it in a normal way. It was injured. This hand is now fine. I've no problem with it at all. But strangely enough, there seems to be something going along with this hand. I'll figure it out, but it's very mysterious, really.
This was aged for 1,000 years. The barrels built from the wreck of Grunho's fleet is not meant for mortal men.
Neither was Omaha Beach, Blondie. Stop trying to scare us. Come on.
All right.
Excelsior.
You okay?
Are you Tony Stank?
Yes, this is Tony Stank.
Now don't you move. My hands aren't as steady as they used to be.
By Odin's beard, you shall not cut my hair, lest you feel the wrath of the mighty Thor. Please, kind sir, do not cut my hair. No! No!
When Superman flies, he has no visible means of propulsion. He just goes like this. Got to get a great name that would represent the company the way it is now. So after thinking a while, I came up with Marvel Comics, and it was a great name. Now, DC. They were called National Comics years ago. And when we changed our name to Marvel, some genius over at National Comics said, hey, we ought to change our name too. So we became Marvel. And what did they change their name to? DC. That'll give you an idea of the kind of competition we had. Hi, heroes. This is Stan Lee coming at you. I want you to know, Marvel has always been and always will be a reflection of the world right outside our window. That world may change and evolve, but the one thing that will never change is the way we tell our stories of heroism. Those stories have room for everyone, regardless of their race, gender, religion, or color of their skin. The only things we don't have room for are hatred, intolerance, and bigotry. That man next to you, he's your brother. That woman over there, she's your sister. And that kid walking by, hey, who knows? He may have the proportionate strength of a spider. We're all part of one big family, the human family. And we all come together in the body of Marvel. And you're part of that family. You're part of the Marvel universe that moves ever upward and onward to greater glory. In other words, Excelsior!